Good evening. We will take a brief amount of time together to explore this theme of His name shall be called. And we got that. You're probably familiar with this from Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. And we're going to spend the majority of our time looking at these four names that we are given about this Messiah who is going to come. But before we do that, I think we need to make a very important observation, and I want to make it by way of just pointing something out. If you listen to oftentimes primarily Christians talk about Christmas, it doesn't take long before they begin talking to you about the problems with Christmas, And some will say, well, the problem with Christmas is this rampant materialism, and I think there's room to be concerned about that. And others about, saying happy holidays instead of Christmas and keeping Christ in Christmas and all of these things. And I'm not saying that any of that, that there's not validity to any of it, but I think that the great problem for us as followers of Jesus, if you are that, and if you aren't, this is the problem still, is the propensity to kind of yawn our way through the Christmas season. And here's what I mean by that. Maybe the guy at Walmart said Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays, and you're like, yeah, good. And maybe, Starbucks put a cross, on the cup this year, and you're like, good. And maybe, you aren't sensing the rampant materialism that so often perhaps at times bothers you, but there is a greater problem in my mind even than all of that, and it is the propensity to yawn our way through it. Here's what I mean by that. Christmas is meant to be approached with a sense of longing. A sense of longing. O come, Emmanuel, it's not a cute song that we sing once a year because we should. That song, if you listened to it and thought about the words as you sang them, that is a song of longing. Christmas is meant to be approached by God's people with angst and with desperation and with a deep hollowness in us that creates a longing for the promise of Christmas to be realized. I would argue not only is Christmas meant to be approached with longing, but the more I study the Bible, the more I see every verse in the Bible is meant to be approached by God's people with a sense of longing. The words on the pages were certainly written from a place of longing. And I want to give you an example of this, and I've been praying, Lord, put in your people this evening, around this season, an immense longing, and don't let us lose it. And here's really what I mean by that. Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6 is a familiar verse to us, and it's one that you might just kind of yawn your way through because you've heard it before, but the original audience, and certainly Isaiah, wrote this and they read this with longing. Let me read it. Now that word is important because it links to preceding thoughts and sentences, and I'm going to let you go back and study those out, but there's a progression here. For to us a child is born. Now, you may not be real familiar with Isaiah